recurring guest, our local NCAA expert, Luke Stoner. He's
Good
covering all things NCAA, football, basketball, maybe even some baseball next year. We had a good run with that this year. But for right now, we're going to get into our college football futures. We'll jump right into it. Where do you want to start?
So we'll start with some team over-unders. We're going to start out here in the Big Ten. I actually have 4 in the Big Ten, which is my most. And I have 2 teams. Actually, 3 of them are in the West, and they all actually have the same line. They're all at 7.5. And so I'm going over with 2 and under with 1. So I'm going over with Purdue and Iowa. Purdue last year, very good. Beat Michigan State when they were number 3 in the country, gave them their first loss. Aiden O'Connell, their quarterback, is excellent. One of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten, maybe second best behind C.J. Stroud at Ohio State. And so I think they're going to be real good. If you look at their schedule, a lot of their bigger games are at home. They didn't get too bad of a draw with the Big Ten East. They have Penn State at home on a Thursday night to open the season. That's going to be a tough one for Penn State there. That's For me, that has shades of Penn State opened the season at Indiana 2 years ago when they lost on that 2-point conversion play. So wild opener there, and I think that could be.
I also do have Purdue. I have it at plus 100. I don't know if you saw where lines were. I have it at plus 100 over 7.5 for Purdue. They surprised me a lot last year. I don't know. I thought they kind of pushed, levels of being like. I thought they flashed that they could compete with Big Ten East schools.
Yeah. For sure.
Like you said, the Michigan State game, for example.
I mean, so much of college football is determined by quarterback play.
Yep.
For sure. Yeah. And they have one. They have a good one. So, and Jeff Brom, their coach, he's been there. I think this is his 3rd or 4th year now.
Yeah.
He's a good coach. He beat Ohio State his first year there. I don't know if people remember that game, but yeah. So, I think Purdue's going to win 8 games.
It's like 70% offense, quarterback. It's 20% like defense, and then like 10% having like a competent program and like guy that's not gonna mess up in situations. But I know what you mean.
And the Big Ten West is light.
Oh my god.
A lot of good wins on their schedule. Their out of conference is pretty easy. So yeah, I like Purdue.
What's your other West one? Because I feel like I have the same.
Yeah, so we both have Iowa. Right?
Iowa, yeah.
Yeah, so Iowa is, they're like the Pittsburgh Steelers of college football.
Yeah.
Like, even when they're not good, they're good.
Yeah.
Because they're consistent. They have a program.
Yeah, it's the program.
That they've been, Kirk Ferentz has been there 20 years, I think, now. One of the longest tenured head coaches in college football. So they have what they do, and they do it well. I hate Iowa. Their fans might be some of my least favorite people in the entire world. But, that being said, they're a consistent football team.
Yeah,
and
I can't say I
wins.
disagree with anything you said, and I have them at over 7.5 wins at minus 100, or minus 105. So that's a good line.
Yeah.
And would you have another Big Ten West one?
So my last Big Ten West is Minnesota, and not because I think they're going to be bad. They're similar to Iowa, but I think just not quite on the same level of consistency. And I'm pulling it up now, but if Minnesota's
what did
schedule
you have, under 7.5?
Under 7.5. Yep. So I'm pulling up their schedule now. They open up the season with New Mexico State and Western Illinois. Those are going to be wins. They have Colorado at home. That's probably going to be a win too. So it's not even so much the out of conference, but they're in conference. They drew Michigan State and Penn State from the Big Ten East, which is a tough draw. And those are both road games. So overall, when you look at their road schedule, it's tough, and that's why I have them under 7.5. They have Michigan State on the road, Penn State on the road, Nebraska on the road, and Wisconsin on the road. I think those are probably 4 losses right there. And then after that, I mean, they have to play Iowa. They got to play Illinois on the road. Not that Illinois is a great team, but Brett Bielema, that's tough.
Yeah.
Like as Penn State found out last year.
Yeah. Yep.
They're not a horrible team. They're better than they used to be.
For sure.
And they have to play Purdue, so I see one more loss in there somewhere. So again, it's not even so much that I hate Minnesota and that I don't think they're going to be good. I think they'll be a decent team, but their schedule is just tough this year.
Yeah, I'm glad you shed some light on that, because I was looking at the Minnesota line, and the only reason I didn't go for it was because of not necessarily PJ Fleck, but the program itself. It just seems like every year it's like they have players. They even when they're bad, they're not terrible.
Yeah. No, it's a good program. I think they probably go 7-5.
Yeah, but like you said with the schedule, that's a good point. Like drawn to Penn State and Michigan State isn't exactly great. Yeah. Speaking of Penn State, shift over to the East. My only Big Ten East pick. It's a hater pick. Penn State's over-under is 8.5. I found it for -125. I'm hitting the under specifically because of the fact that all these Penn State fans are telling me that Sean Clifford is going to start for them. Yeah. If he gets to 4 games, I mean, I don't know what their schedule is looking like, but if he gets to 4 games in my mind, excuse me, the best I think they are 2-2, unless God forbid they have a great pool, but
yeah.
Them, Michigan, Ohio State, like the big guns of even Michigan State, I guess. The big guns of the Big Ten East. I don't know why, but they tend to play. I don't want to say SEC football, but they don't start playing until week 3.
Yeah. No,
and I don't think Clifford's a guy that's gonna, unless he's taken leaps from what we saw last year. I don't think that he's gonna be the guy to piggyback them through those first 4 games as C.J. Stroud would for Ohio State.
Sean Clifford, I don't like him, first of all. He's not great by any means. I will say he did get, before he got injured last year at Iowa, Penn State was 5-0.
Oh, he was serviceable.
They were going to beat Iowa that game, 100%. They were number 4 in the country, about to beat number 3. Penn State season last year, if Sean Clifford doesn't get hurt, could be completely different.
Yep. And my that's another problem I have with picking Penn State to win 9 games is the fact that I don't know. I don't hate James Franklin, but I don't trust him at the same time.
I don't.
It's like I remember when that Sean Clifford injury happened, and I remember being like, man, he really shouldn't play. But their backup guy just looked. He looked like he never played football before.
He was the worst backup quarterback I've ever seen.
I would just assume that all those other big guns of the Big Ten East, if their starters went down, they at least have a serviceable young guy to have in there. That's the thing that scared me.
And people say even like I just said, oh well, what would happen if Sean Clifford didn't get hurt? But the thing is, to be a great program, you got to be ready for that. You got to be prepared for your quarterback to go down, and you see that with somebody like Ohio State back when they won the national championship. They did it with their 3rd string quarterback. So the ability to reload is part of a program. Penn State just isn't at that level. So I was looking at Penn State's line. I think if I bullet to my head, they probably win 9 games, but I wasn't confident.
I just couldn't take that. If you would have gave me 7.5, I would have took it for 8 for sure.
Yeah.
But
no, it's not a bad pick at all. They have.
It just scares me to start the year knowing that they're gonna roll with Clifford.
Rolling with Clifford.
I mean it's not even that they're rolling with Clifford. It's the fact that it doesn't seem like. I mean, I'm not saying they should have got somebody in the transfer portal. I hate all that crap, but I just wish there was competition. Yeah,
and the start to the season isn't great schedule-wise either. They have Purdue, like I said, on the road on a Thursday night. That's just weird. The vibes are off of that game.
Yeah, absolutely.
They get Ohio at home. Okay, that's a win. But then they have Auburn on the road, which Auburn isn't what they used to be.
It's a 50-50 program.
But
you don't know what you're
it's on the road
in
SEC country. You don't know what's going to happen. And then they have Michigan on the road this year. They have Ohio State at home, but it's going to be the big noon kickoff. It's not a whiteout. So that they don't have the home field advantage there. And overall, I think they have a pretty tough schedule. So, I'm not against the pick. I stayed away because I just wasn't sure, basically. And then last one, I'll keep this short, but Ohio State over 10.5. I didn't see the exact line for this. I'd imagine that's probably
high.
It's like a -160.
I think it was even low. I think it was even higher than that. I think it was like -2. I saw them. I don't know what the game was. If it was 9.5 or 10.5, but it was like -250.
Okay.
So it was crazy up there.
I didn't. And again, I got these lines about 4 or 5 days ago, so things could have shifted a little bit.
Lord knows until I put this out. Could be even longer. So.
Yeah. So, but I don't see Ohio State losing more than 1 game this year. We're both Notre Dame fans. I think that game will be closer. Than they.
I think it's good for Notre Dame in the fact that it's week 1.
Yeah.
That's a.
I think the current line on that game is like -14.5.
Yeah.
I think that's a little too much, but
Absolutely.
I think on the road at Ohio State, Mark Spring's first real game. that's a tough place to try to win.
Yep. And Tyler Buckner's first. I mean, he's played a lot of games, but he hasn't. Yeah, this hasn't been his program.
Yeah. So I don't think Notre Dame's going to be quite ready to win that one. I think it'll be close, but I think Ohio State probably gets it done. And then I think they have Michigan at home this year. They're drawing Penn State in a non-whiteout noon, so like. Yeah, I think they're going to win at least 11 games. Their offense is going to be insane.
Mm-hmm.
C.J. Stroud, also, I'm just going to toss this out here. I didn't do an official one, but C.J. Stroud's my Heisman pick.
Yeah.
Bryce Young's going to be
great.
great.
Can we say it's official now? Huh? Can we say it's official now?
Yeah, it's my official Heisman pick. Yeah. Because I think Bryce Young's going to be great. He is, but it's all about narratives.
Absolutely.
It's nearly impossible to win the Heisman 2 years in a row.
Yep.
So I think Ohio State.
Yeah, once you win one, it's like, what do you have to? You know what I mean? You almost have to prove more to get it again. It's like,
and people just expect Alabama to be great.
Absolutely.
So like
it's inherent.
You lead Alabama to 11 wins. It's not impressive necessarily, since every quarterback before you has also done it.
Yep.
All right, I'm done on.
That's good for me. What division? What conference you want to go to next?
Next, I have the ACC.
Good with me. I got some here.
Okay, so first up, I have Pitt under 8.5.
I also have that.
So
I have a line at plus 105 for that too. Plus money was what got me. I was like, okay.
Yeah, plus money on that. So Pitt under 8.5. I think they were a little bit of a flash and pan last year.
Oh, for sure.
Don't get me wrong, they're not going to be bad. Pat Narduzzi's a good coach, not a great coach, but a good coach. The ACC is pretty light, competition-wise. But
also had the only first-round pick quarterback.
Yeah, Kenny Pickett's gone. He was big-time wide receiver transferred out.
Yep.
So I think their offense is going to take some steps back. And they don't have the easiest out-of-conference either. They get West Virginia at home to start the season. I think they probably win that game, but again, it's not an easy start to the season by any means. And I'm glad that rivalry's back. That's an awesome rivalry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those are two fan bases that are that hate each other.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that's a rivalry that's back. Then they get Tennessee also at home, but Tennessee's going to be good this year. So that's two tough games to open up the season. I think they probably lose one of them. Mm-hmm. And then as far as ACC conference play, they have to go to North Carolina. They're playing at Virginia, which I think will be tough, at Miami, at Louisville. They get Virginia Tech at home, but overall, I see 4 losses on that schedule, given what left. That's why I took that pick.
Yeah. You mentioned Pitt in there. I have Pitt. I have Pitt with the under 8.5, and then I have like I said, I meant to say you mentioned West Virginia. I have West Virginia. This line was a little absurd to me.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they're not in a great state of their program, but I don't think the ACC is at a great state as a whole.
West Virginia. What did you have it at?
I have it at over 5.5 for minus 130.
Yeah. I could see West Virginia going over that.
I just 6 wins. That's all you know what I mean? That's
I mean, West Virginia's more, again, it's kind of like in Iowa where they're never going to win a national title unless something crazy happens, but or even a conference title. But I think they'll win 6 games.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So that's all I have for the ACC.
Okay. Last one I had was Florida State over 6.5.
I like that pick. That's another one for me. It's like 7 games.
Yeah. But they don't have a crazy hard schedule.
They flashed a little bit at times last year.
Yeah, they had a great opener against Notre Dame. Weren't really able to carry the momentum out. They lost to Jacksonville State, I think.
Yeah.
But that being said, they start season FCS team Duquesne, mark up a win for that.
Yeah.
They get Clemson at home this year. Not necessarily sure they'll win that one, but there's a lot of games on here that are home games that are very winnable. They've had good recruiting classes coming in, so I think they'll get to 7.
I actually do have one pick for this. It's not necessarily, I don't know if I'm going to go with it. I just saw it. It caught my eye.
Yeah.
It just made me think that if you're not picking Clemson to win the ACC, which I think 90% of America is,
sure,
I would throw a dark horse pick at Miami, and it's only because they've gone crazy in this transfer portal game. Now, they have to put it together.
Yeah.
And they brought in Cristobal. That's what I literally have that in parentheses. And if anybody could bring the U back, this is like almost it.
Yeah. It is.
For,
I think Miami, they're going to be, good in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So, but what's the line on them to win?
Plus 550. That's what it was for me. That kind of set me because I think Clemson was like a sure lock.
Yeah.
I think they had it like minus 290, like something.
Something like that.
Something pretty safe. So it was just you're feeling good kind of. You want to go out on a limb. who knows? Maybe Clemson suffers some kind of setback or something. But you know, by the way they're going, by the way they're building up, it's almost a sure deal. I feel like they have that.
But I don't mind taking a flyer on them. Plus
100. That's what I mean. Yeah, if it, over plus 350 for me would have been okay. Honestly.
Yeah. So next up, let's go to the SEC.
Good with me.
All right. So first one I have, we already mentioned them, was Auburn. Auburn over 5.5.
Yep.
Now, actually, I just saw this line might have moved to 6 on the dot.
I think it did because I looked at it today and I think it was 6.5.
Okay, so somebody else.
I think it's all the way. I had it at DraftKings. I think at 6.5.
Really?
Already.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what scared me because at 5.5, I take that. Six games. It's just that, you know, getting over 7 kind of scares me.
So at 6.5, I'd stay away. If you can get it at 5.5 or 6, I still like it. They have 3 games. I'm checking out their schedule real quick. I forget exactly who they were, but they have 3 games on their schedule that are basically guaranteed wins. And then at that point, so they start off the year with Mercer and San Jose State. There's 2 wins there. They have another out-of-conference game against Western Kentucky at home. I'm giving them that one.
Yep.
So they're at their 3 wins there. At that point, you only need 3 more. They have a decent shot against Penn State at home. They get Missouri at home, LSU at home. I think Brian Kelly will get that program to a good spot in 2 or 3 years, but right now it's still in the rebuilding phase.
I wasn't even thinking about taking a flyer on them.
Arkansas at home. You know, look, the SEC, they beat up on each other.
Yep.
I think Auburn. I think Auburn goes at least 3-5 in the SEC, and you know you get to 6 wins.
You mentioned Arkansas there. Did you take a flyer on them?
I was looking at them. I think, you know, Vegas is very good at what they do.
Yes.
I thought they nailed it, where it was like the
7.5.
exact
I have it at. Yeah, it's like that's gonna be tough. The only reason I took it at 7.5 is because I got it at plus 140.
Okay.
So
and do you have them over under?
I'm over. Yeah.
Okay.
So get that 8th win.
Yeah.
If it was minus money, if it was like minus 105 even, I probably would have stayed away. But just for the fact that it's a little in the plus, I was like, we'll dabble.
Arkansas has a big game to start the season. It's home against Cincinnati. Which obviously Cincinnati went to the playoff last year, good team. They lost a good amount of talent to the draft.
Yeah.
But Luke Fickell is one of the best coaches in the country.
Big Luke Fickell fan.
I'm surprised he didn't get a big time job.
I think they paid him pretty handsomely.
Yeah.
But it's the namesake. I get what you mean. It's like you want a big program.
I think he's a guy that can wait for his dream job basically.
Yeah, and I was gonna say the other half of that is too. They're trying to grow as he's growing the program. Like they're making the move to where are they going, to the Big 12, I think.
Yeah, they're going to the Big 12, I believe, in 2 years.
Yeah.
So, Cincinnati's a growing program. But anyway, point being, that's a big game for Arkansas. I think if they win that game, they probably go over. If they lose that game, they go under.
Yep.
So that's a big way to start your season right there. But yeah, Arkansas was a stay away from me because I was just like, I just wasn't confident either way. Next one I have is Alabama under 11.5.
Well,
so
you don't have an idea what the line was.
I'd have to look it up.
It's not a big deal, but
you're betting on one loss, obviously, and the SEC, just the way they play, you don't know who that loss is going to be. Last year was at Texas A&M when Bama was a 17-point favorite.
And they play tight games with other people too. Like it's not like they just bulldozed every team.
Bama, I don't want to say the dynasty's over, Paul, but the dynasty's not over.
Everybody else is catching up.
They're probably going to win the title this year if I had to put my money on it, but the gap between them isn't as between Bama and everybody else isn't as big.
Georgia showed us last year. I mean, they closed the gap.
And a lot of that is due to recruiting now. It used to be, Nick Saban can just say, well, we have the best facilities, we have the best everything, we're the best team, we're the best to get you in the draft. And all that was true. But now with other teams catching up facilities-wise, and the big one obviously is NIL.
Oh yeah.
With schools like Miami and Texas and Tennessee,
USC.
Yeah, they're giving millions of dollars away to these kids. If you look at the rankings, Alabama hasn't been the runaway number one for the last couple of years. So the talent gap has closed a little bit, and so I think one team's going to knock them off at some point during the year. That's all I have for the SEC.
I got one more. I think everybody would look at this and just say, "Oh my God, Matt Corral's gone. What are we gonna do?" But Ole Miss over 7.5. It's another one where I could easily see them, not being Georgia of last year, but definitely closing the gap, like showing signs of closing the gap in the SEC. Lane Kiffin, for all the goofy shit he does, he's gonna succeed handsomely in this NIL transfer portal game.
100%.
I think he's gonna play a little NFL free agency with the NIL. I think he's trying to build teams instead of necessarily recruiting them out of high school. And I just think, I don't think Matt Corral was the star of that show last year, is what I'm saying.
No,
obviously he had the name, notoriety, draft, whatever. But I think their talent on the offensive side of the ball was so deep last year. And I think I'm putting my chips on Lane Kiffin here, basically, to get that offense flourishing. So I have them at over 7.5 at -130. That's a ballsy pick, but is what it is. I'm banking on Kiffin this year.
Yeah, no, his offenses are always going to be great. They're going to keep him in any game they play. And yeah, so I like that pick. One more. This wasn't originally on my list. It just kind of popped in my head as I was sitting here in the SEC. South Carolina. I think it was. I'm trying to find it.
5.5.
5.5. Yeah. I actually kind of
saw
love
it today. I liked it too, but
I kind of love the over there. So here's the thing: they got Spencer Rattler transferred in to play quarterback. They won 7 games last year with that grad transfer.
He was like an assistant. Assistant coach.
I forget his name.
It's crazy.
I'm blanking on him, but yeah. So they won 6 games in the regular season, won their bowl game. But Spencer Rattler, I think, gets overly hated. He was basically, the pendulum swung from he was overrated, and now it's swung all the way over to he's underrated. I think a lot because he was really good 2 years ago for Oklahoma. Wasn't great last year, but I think knowing now what we know about that Oklahoma program, where Lincoln Riley had 1 foot out the door and wasn't really committed to the team last year, I think that's probably has a lot to do with why Spencer Rattler didn't have his best year. And so I think Shane Beamer's a great coach for South Carolina, and I think with Spencer Rattler at the helm, I think they'll get to 6 wins. So if they are at 5.5, I would take over 5.5.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. All right, so SEC's done. So Big 12.
What was your second SEC pick?
Alabama.
What was before that?
Auburn over 5.5.
I gotta take a flyer on that one.
Okay.
All right. Where do you want to jump to next?
All right. Big 12.
Fine.
Okay, so I got 2 here. Well, first of all, I was gonna basically when I first started looking at the lines, I was looking at Texas 9.5. I was gonna go under, but then I just kind of thought, well, they're out of conference isn't bad. They might get there, but I think so. The better play was to bet some overs on their 2 competitors. The 2 competitors to Texas and Oklahoma, which are Oklahoma State and Baylor.
Okay.
So I have Oklahoma State over 8.5. They were a team that was 1 win away from the college football playoff last year. Ended up winning the Fiesta Bowl. Great team. Again. Probably not, they're not national title contenders realistically. But
I actually have them, before I just wrote that down, I have them listed as a contender to win the Big 12.
Win the Big 12.
Plus 550. So.
Yeah, so I would take flyer on that to win the conference for sure. They made the conference championship last year. So I like them at 8.5. But then my lock here, and this might be the biggest lock I have in this entire list. Is Baylor over 7.5. I think that is
I have that at -130.
Disrespectful line overall.
I also have them to win the Big 12 at plus 650.
I'd take that. I just think Oklahoma.
I think it's up to them in Oklahoma State. I'm a Texas hater.
I don't think. I don't think Oklahoma will be ready. Brent Venables I think he's gonna be a great head coach. But they had.
I have that parentheses because I have Oklahoma under 9.5 wins. At -110, and I basically just put Venable down there. And I like Brad Venable, and I think he was a good hire. But I just think same thing with Brian Kelly at LSU. It's like it's gonna take anybody kind of like if you and the only saving grace to coming in and trying to build a program to win right away would be the transfer portal and NIL and shit like that. Like But that there's only so many allotted slots for that and so many scholarships you can give away. You know what I mean? So it's not overall, like you can't bring a whole team in.
And overall, they were on the negative side of that.
They weren't. I was gonna say they were not Texas or Miami or something like that. You know.
So I think, and also with Texas and Oklahoma, they're both gonna have a target on their back all year.
Oh, absolutely.
In the Big 12.
Absolutely.
Those teams are pissed that they're leaving them for the SEC.
Absolutely.
Leaving them out to dry. They're going to get every team's best effort every single week. And with Texas, obviously the whole Texas is back thing has been kind of a meme for the last 5 years or so
Horns
now.
down.
I think they're going to be decent this year. I think they'll be better than years past. But this idea that they're going to win 10, 11 games and they're a top 10 team, talent-wise, I understand it's getting there. Quinn Ewers is one of the top QB recruits of all time. Here's the thing. I don't believe in Steve Sarkisian. He hasn't done anything as a head coach, really, in his entire career.
Except be drunk.
Yeah, so, like, he had USC. He had that program. He got fired. Like, he's had talent before. He's had the amenities. He's had everything. You know, USC is one of the biggest.
The one thing I'll give about Sarkisian when he's sober is that he has a resume of players in the NFL. Mm-hmm. That's his, like... Yeah. That's his calling card. It's just I could get you to the NFL. I think that was his whole selling point to Arch Manning is I'm the guy that. But I understand 110% what you mean from a head coaching point. There's so much. It's such a different thing from being a head coach and winning football games and being boots on the ground and calling plays and stuff to just flashing your resume about I could get you to the NFL. You know what I mean? It's not.
I think Texas might be good next year. You know, in their last year in the Big 12, maybe they'll win it on their way out. I think it's a year too early for them right now. And like I said, I don't really believe in Sark, so I wouldn't bet on Texas. If anything, I'd do their under. But yeah, so that's my feelings on the Big 12.
Yep.
All right, so let's move out west now. Pac-12.
Yep, I got a couple.
All right, first of all, and this is an extremely disrespectful line too. I'd imagine it's probably in the minus 140, 150 range. Is Utah over 8.5? This is a team that won the Pac-12 last year.
I have them to win the Pac-12 at plus 250.
Yeah, they won the Pac-12 last year. They didn't lose much talent. They gave Ohio State a hell of a game in the Rose Bowl. Probably should have won it, realistically. They just kind of choked away at the end. That's a great team and an extremely well-coached team. You know, we're talking about like Iowa with a very stable program. Utah is that. They're a stable program. You know, they like usual in the Pac-12, they're probably going to cannibalize each other. Pac-12 is not going to get a team in the playoffs like they have in a long time. But I think Utah wins 10 games, and they're at 8.5. I'll take that all day. And then my under is USC. They're at 9.5 right now. I think they'll be back eventually.
And that's all. That's not Kiffin. Lincoln. That's all in the name, you know, and the notoriety, and that's where that line lies.
Lincoln, he got Caleb Williams, who was Oklahoma's, you know, kind of star quarterback who replaced Spencer Rattler last year. He brought him with him, but he's still unproven. Well, both of them. I mean, Caleb Williams is unproven, and then Lincoln Riley, not unproven from the sense of being a good coach. He's obviously a fantastic coach. He did a great job with Oklahoma, but look, USC needs some structure, needs some rebuilding. You can only throw so much talent at somewhere and expect a certain amount of wins. At the end of the day, your quarterback needs some stability as far as your system, and Caleb has a little bit of that with being with Lincoln in Oklahoma, but ultimately they have a pretty tough schedule. They end the year with Notre Dame, so that's a tough out-of-conference game there, and just like Oklahoma and Texas, USC is going to have the target on their back all year too. Everybody's going to want to beat Lincoln Riley. Everyone's going to want to beat the program, you know, leaving them for the Big Ten.
Absolutely.
So they're going to get every team's best shot all year. I just don't think USC gets 10 wins. I don't think it happens. But, yes, you got anything else there?
I just have if you're one of those Oregon stands, Oregon is plus 290 to win the conference. They have taken a beating from a sense of that, you know, Just the fact that they lost the head of their program, their head coach, and they're not Oregon what they were, but I don't know. The Pac-12's up in the air in my mind.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's 100% up for
take
grabs.
a flyer on it if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean Dan Lanning, he just came from the D coordinator job at Georgia.
Yeah.
Clearly knows how to win. That was an insane
Oh my God,
defense.
that was an insane defense. Yeah, that's what got him that job.
Yeah. So I think he'll do a good job. I think he's somebody that probably gets them to 8 or 9 wins. And how that that might be enough to get you in the conference championship game at that point. And then once you're there, who knows? And they certainly still have good talent there. I mean, it's Oregon. They always have a bunch of recruits come in, especially in this NIL space now, with Nike just showering these players of money to go to Oregon. So
the only other for independent, I have Notre Dame at 8. I have the over on the 8.5. Minus 125. Just from the sense of I like their schedule. I really think there's a chance they can win 9 games. I'm not setting my expectations much higher than 8, but it's just where I have it.
Yeah, I mean they still have a lot of talent there.
Yeah, Michael Meyer come back,
and despite Brian Kelly leaving, it's not like
it's the same program.
It's
the same offense and defense.
The vast majority of the coaching staff stayed the same. There's still a lot of structure there. Those players believe in Marcus Freeman and the system they're running. Nothing changed. Tommy Reese is still running the offense. So, I think they'll be ready to go. And they do they play Ohio State, they play Clemson, they play USC. Those are certainly 3 tough games. But other than that, I think they should be favored in the rest of their games.
Yeah, I think if they go 2-1 through that, they can squeeze out maybe close 8 or 9 wins.
I think they'll be good there. Speaking of Notre Dame, a team that's going to play them this year is BYU. So that's another independent that I have down here. So they're at 8.5. I have them under 8.5, and it's not because I don't think BYU is good. I think they're going to be good. They're going to give a lot of these top teams. They're going to give them hell. But it's their schedule this year is kind of brutal. And respect to them for scheduling a lot of big time teams. Obviously, as an independent, you can schedule whoever you want. BYU could just say, well, let's just go undefeated and schedule cupcakes, and they can do that. But that being said, so they have USF, Baylor, Oregon, Notre Dame, Arkansas. Liberty is a good team. They play Liberty on the road. Boise State, Stanford. They play a lot of quality teams this year. And between Arkansas, Notre Dame, Oregon, Baylor, those could be 4 losses right there. So no disrespect to BYU, I think they're going to be a great team, but they have a heck of a schedule.
And I like where their program's at too. I mean, they're moving into conference play in a couple of years, and they've churned out the talent in the NFL the last couple of years. So.
Yeah, BYU's a great program. They're going to be good, but I think with that schedule, it's going to be tough to get to 8.5. So I have 2 more here to finish things off, unless you got anything else.
That's fine. Go ahead.
All right, so this is my hater special. As you can see, I'm repping the West Point shirt here. I didn't touch the Army line because it's at exactly 8. I think that's probably about right for where Army's at as a program. But I do have the hater special of Air Force under 8.5, Navy under 4.5. And it's not just because I'm a hater.
Yeah.
It's because, first of all, Air Force.
That Navy one's. That's a crush. That's
low.
That's a blow.
Yeah. Here's the deal. It just has to do with their schedules. So Air Force plays in the Mountain West, which is a quality conference. It's not the best for sure, but if you have kind of your Power 5, it's right below them is the American, and then I'd put the Mountain West as the next best conference after that. You have some quality teams from Nevada to UNL. Well, not so much UNLV in football. Never mind on that. But San Diego State, Colorado State's decent at times. They were bad last year, but obviously Boise State, Utah State's usually pretty solid. Wyoming has turned out talent, obviously, someone like Josh Allen. So it's not an easy conference to win 9 games in. And also, outside even just the Mountain West, you have to play Army and Navy, who they know each other like no other teams know each other. Like they play each other every single year. Their systems haven't changed in a century. They know each other damn well, and they care so much about winning those games. Air Force lost to Army last year, despite probably being a better team, and that's just kind of how these rivalry games work. So and they also get Colorado as an out-of-conference game this year. Colorado's not a great team, but at the end of the day, it is a Power 5 team, has some bigger athletes, faster athletes, so there's a chance they lose that game too. So, again, Air Force is going to be good. They always are, but I don't know if they get to 9 games. And then Navy, kind of similar deal where they're not a bad team by any means, but playing in the American is a tough ask for a team that cannot recruit anywhere near the level of a Cincinnati or a Houston. Yeah. They just have a tough schedule overall. They get Notre Dame in the out-of-conference play. That's going to be a loss. But yeah, if you go through their schedule, you get Memphis, Eastern Carolina, Air Force, Tulsa, SMU, Houston. Temple sucks, but that's one outlier. Cincinnati, Notre Dame, UCF, Army. Like, that is a tough schedule. And I don't know if they get to 5 wins in that schedule. So that's why I'm being a hater. But I actually am backing it up with how I actually feel about their schedules. So not to hate the troops too much, but just kind of where I'm at there. So yeah, that's everything I have for over-unders. One last thing I'd take a flyer on. I believe in these 2 teams, that they're going to be the 2 teams playing for the championship. That's Alabama and Ohio State. And you can get Alabama to win the SEC at like -170, I think, and Ohio State to win the Big Ten at like -220. I think I saw it. I'd parlay those 2 together. That gets you to about even money.
Yeah.
I think that's a no-brainer to me. I don't think Nick Saban loses the SEC twice in a row, and I don't think Ryan Day loses the Big Ten twice in a row. So, I would take those 2 for conference champions. Alabama's my national champion. Obviously, that's kind of a chalk pick, but Nick Saban is. I'm going to bet on him until I'm proven wrong.
Listen, we just talked about forever about how the gap is closing. It's not like.
No, it's not like Alabama is not 2012 Alabama. They're not going to win the national title by 4 touchdowns. But if you look at just recent history, the past 10 years or so, if Nick Saban loses a national championship, loses or doesn't make the national championship, the next year he almost always responds like that.
Yep.
And they have a lot of talent there. Bryce Young is probably the best quarterback in the country, best player in the country. Realistically, I would pick him for Heisman if it weren't for the narrative stuff and the fact that nobody's won a back-to-back Heisman in this century. So, so that's my national championship pick. Like I said, C.J. Stroud for Heisman. I don't know. Do you have any other real dark horses that you think people might not be thinking about, or
team-wise, or for the Heisman?
Either, I guess, but
not really team-wise. For the Heisman, I think I've read that there are. I mean, you know how hard it is for a defensive guy to get nominated and stuff.
Yeah.
I think we might see a sleeper defensive guy come in. I think we're gonna see something. I think we're gonna see a quarterback give Stroud, or a non-quarterback give Stroud and Love a run for their money.
Yeah.
That's just I think there's too much talent out there. I mean, especially with the just look at how Georgia. Nine starters or out of 11 dropped it off their defense. Yeah. In the first just 2 rounds or something. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think athletes are getting more of the shine nowadays instead of necessarily just quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I think that's just the way it's going. Like I said, with the narrative-based stuff.
I mean, Aiden Hutchinson got close last year.
Yep. Absolutely.
He was right there. Yeah. All it takes is. Well, at the end of the day, to win a Heisman, realistically, you have to be the best player on your team that goes realistically 10-2 or better.
Yep, makes a nice run.
Unless the only exception to that in recent memory is Johnny Manziel.
He was bigger than football.
But he was, that was different. You got to be one of the best players on one of the best teams. You can't just be a great player on a bad team.
Yep.
That's why I have C.J. Stroud. I think Ohio State might go undefeated even. And so if you're the best player on an undefeated team,
I understand that.
The narrative is there. As far as some dark horses, it's hard to say. College football usually goes pretty chalk, right? Yeah. It's your Alabamas, your Ohio States, your Clemson, Georgia, all that kind of stuff. this might be a homer pick. I think Notre Dame's going to be really good this year.
Oh, I do too.
I think it's going to be tough for them to make the playoff because I think they do probably lose that first game.
That's going to hurt them. I think it's just going to be the lack of experience in the coaching room. And that's not just with Freeman, that's with Tommy on the offensive side of things. And, I think they're going to be a good team. I think the talent is there. I just don't know, if in the long run of that final stretch of the season, where crucial decisions are made. Yeah. I think you got to get to the dance sometimes before you experience the dance.
Yeah. No, I think Notre Dame's season will come down to the Clemson game as far as how far they go.
Yep.
Because I don't, like I said, is it
I'm a Clemson hater on the year, honestly. Like, I really don't think Clemson is... The lines, at least the sports books, are viewing Clemson as Ohio State and Alabama, and I don't even think they're in the same ballpark.
I don't think they're in the same ballpark as them either. They have Clemson at home.
I think teams like Oklahoma State and Baylor would give Clemson a run for their money.
I think, I think so.
I think Georgia, Georgia, obviously they just lost a whole defense, by itself, but, I think that program might be able to recover to the point where they can give other top-tier schools, a
run for the money, yeah. No, I see that. But yeah, with Notre Dame, it's just... I think they probably lose that first game to Ohio State. Not that it's not possible they can win it. I think they can, but Ohio State is far and away... There's two top teams. It's Alabama and Ohio State, I think, are the two top teams this year, and that's kind of a tier by itself. But with Notre Dame, if they lose that Ohio State game in close fashion, win against BYU, get some other quality wins on the schedule, and then they beat Clemson at home. At that point, they're going into USC 10-1. I think if they beat USC, they get in the playoff. So, obviously, some coaching turnover. Maybe I'm just being a homer right now.
Maybe I am too.
That program has been consistent for 5-6 years now, of just consistent 10-11 win seasons, if not an undefeated season like we saw during the COVID year. So I don't think there's a big drop-off with Brian Kelly leaving. I think...
Take it as you want.
Take it as you want. We're both homers, but...
Yeah.
I think that when I talk about Spencer Rattler, the pendulum swinging from overrated to underrated, I think that's happened with Notre Dame where, if you wanted to say especially during the Charlie Weiss era, when Notre Dame would get ranked in the preseason top 10, Notre Dame was Texas in the 2000s.
Absolutely.
Where they were getting ranked in the top 10 for no reason, basically.
Yep.
But last season, it was like, okay, Notre Dame, they lost one game early, and then people were just like, oh, well, they're done. And they were being ranked way lower than they should have been when they were clearly beating good teams by good margins. I think the pendulum swung where Notre Dame is often underrated every year. And just because they lose in the playoff, it's like, okay, well, everybody loses to Alabama in the playoff. Like, why isn't that same narrative there about any Pac-12 school or Oklahoma or any Big Ten school outside of 2014 Ohio State?
Like you just mentioned, Texas.
At the end of the day, there have been very few national champions in the last 10 years. You have Alabama, you have Georgia, and then you had basically two flashes in the pan. In Clemson, then you had two flashes in the pan with Ohio State and LSU when they popped off.
Yep.
Like, yes, Notre Dame hasn't won the big game, but nobody else has either. Like, nobody else is, Washington got fucking smacked, right? Ohio State, even that 1 year against Clemson, 31-0. Like, but it's just Notre Dame that goes there and loses to Alabama by 17. It's like, oh, well, they're dog shit. It's like, well, no, Alabama went on to beat Ohio State by 4 touchdowns in the championship a week later. So it's like, it's not as big of a disparity as people think. Anyway, Homer rant over, but so either way, I am pumped for college football to be back. It's my favorite sport by a wide margin, so I'm pumped for it. I'm gonna run up NCAA football 13. I'm gonna put that back into the 360, start my dynasty up. So I'm pumped to go.
We got one more year for the next one.
Thank God that's gonna be back next year. Can't wait for that.
That's where we'll wrap it up. Thank Luke for coming on. We'll have some bonus picks if you stay tuned. We're going into the MAC. Here to wrap up this episode of Pick Fiends here. I told you if you stuck around, I'll give you some bonus MAC picks. Of course, I was Mr. MAC Conference last year. I don't know my record exactly.
But I tell you, I was above 500 on MAC picks. I have a great hierarchy I look to, including Luke, who's just here. When it comes to the MAC and it comes to the picks, if you hear that rattling going on or any plastic balls moving anywhere, hitting off the ground, it is my dog Chester. Come here, Chet. Chet, come here. Come here. Oh yeah, here he is. Couple months old, 6, 7, 8 months old now, something like that. Pain in the butt, puppy stuff. But yeah, he's hanging out down here in the stew with me, so I'm sure he'll be a nuisance to us somehow. All right, there he goes. We'll get right into it here. I have 2 picks for you in the MAC conference, starting with Western Michigan, a criminally slept-on team last year in the MAC. I think they won 8, 9 games, something like that. Their over-under is 6.5 wins at plus 125. They also finished the year extremely hot. I think they won their last 2 games of the year in pretty dominant fashion. And my other pick would be NIU, also another powerhouse. I don't know if they won. They didn't win the MAC, but they had the best record in the MAC. I don't know, something like that. Yeah. NIU, another over 6.5. I don't know why they are discrediting, the MAC teams who are going to get at least 5, 6 MAC conference games that are easily winnable for them. So I got that at minus 150. And those are my 2 MAC picks. I do have a pick to win the MAC, and that would be Western Michigan at plus 850. That's just me. That's just my shot in the dark. You could also get NIU, who had the most wins in the conference last year, at plus 600. So either of them, you're making money. That's going to wrap it up here for our college football picks. Thank you for joining us here. Please remember to like, subscribe, comment, do whatever you got to do. Spread the word. We appreciate it here. Thank you to Luke for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode of Pick Fiends.